We all love a classic underdog story, don't we? We were all supporting Leicester in 2016 when they won the Premier League. The same can be said for Bradford in 2015 when they beat Chelsea 4-2 at Stamford Bridge. Over the years, we have been blessed with some truly amazing underdog stories. Greece in 2004, Montpellier in 2012 are all classic underdog examples where a smaller team defies the odds to come out victorious. However, none were as shocking as Denmark's remarkable run at the 1992 Euro. Not only because they were not expected to win, but actually they didn't even qualify for the tournament in the first place. Confused, right? Let's look into this in more depth. That's right, Denmark didn't actually qualify in the conventional way. Drawn into a favourable qualifying group with Austria, Faroe Islands, Northern Ireland and Yugoslavia, Denmark felt that this group was an excellent opportunity to qualify for the Euros. Sadly, at the time, for Denmark they finished second in the group despite winning 6 out of 8 games. Yugoslavia pipped them to first position by just 1 point, beating Denmark in the capital Copenhagen in one of the deciding games. In Euro qualifiers of today, second place would be enough to qualify. But back then, only the winners of the 7 groups joined the host at the tournament. This meant Denmark were out and Yugoslavia were due to compete at the tournament. But something happened. They had a few little problems to sort out, and by little problems, I mean terrible wars. Yes, a civil war broke out in Yugoslavia which forced FIFA and UEFA to ban them from competitive football at the very last minute. To put into context how last minute the decision was, the Yugoslavian players had already landed in the host country Sweden. On the other hand, the Danes thought they would be experiencing the tournament from the comfort of their Art Deco sofa up until a week before the opening fixture. On May 30th, just 2 weeks before the tournament began, the Danish FA received an invitation from none other than UEFA to replace Yugoslavia at Euro 1992. The consensus around Europe was that Denmark didn't actually pose any significant threat at the tournament. But Denmark, on the other hand, saw it as a chance to put their name in lights. But despite all of this, they still had numerous problems. Rikard Müller-Nielsen was the Danish coach throughout the qualifying stages and for the tournament itself. But the media outlets demanded that Nielsen should step down from the manager's role after a disappointing qualifying campaign and also due to his pragmatic approach. Surely, this situation cannot be good news for any team. A defender during his playing days, Nielsen was known as a defensive coach, making his teams very hard to beat. But during the qualifying campaign, his magic seemed to fade away. At the time, Denmark were a relatively inexperienced team on the European stage, with 15 of the 20-man squad having not played outside of Denmark. Although there was little experience in the squad, Denmark did possess a couple of game changers in their ranks. In between the sticks, they had a player who went on to become arguably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League history. Yes, you all know him. He's none other than Peter Schmeichel. After all, you don't get nicknamed the Great Dane for nothing, right? In attack, the Denmark team were heavily reliant on the creativity and talent of talisman Laudrup. Okay, I know what you're thinking, and yes, you are correct. There are 2 Laudrups, adding yet another twist to the 1992 Euro story. Technically, both brothers had quit international football before the tournament began. Unhappy about the defensive style deployed by Nielsen, the Laudrups made the decision to step down from international football. But in February 1992, Brian Laudrup had a change of heart, declaring himself available again for international selection. Despite his best efforts, Brian was unable to persuade his older brother Mikhail to follow his lead. A massive blow for Denmark. And why not? The man who was nicknamed the Prince of Denmark would not be at the Euro 92. Even after the decision from Brian, there were still doubts about his fitness. He was still coming back from a cruciate ligament injury that ruled him out of most of the 91-92 season at Bayern Munich. There were concerns that Laudrup was rushed back by the German giants, who had a disastrous season by the standards, severely missing his services. But for Nielsen, it was a risk he was willing to take, only needing one moment of magic from Laudrup to turn any game on its head. Put it this way, if the same teams were put in a group today, you would consider it the group of death with Sweden, France, England and of course Denmark in the same group. Nobody, not even a single soul, was tipping Denmark, who were called into the tournament 10 days before it began after the expulsion of Yugoslavia. The group stage started and the first game ended as a draw against England, followed by a 1-0 loss against Sweden, meaning they had to do anything and everything to win against the group favourites France, or else they would be eliminated as many expected. The French players were too overconfident that they said, "Don't be too tough on us today, don't be rough because we got to play the semi-final." But in front of 25,000 fans, the Danes pulled off a miracle victory, defeating France 2-1 to seal second place in the group and a place in the knockout stages. Defying all the odds and with just 10 days notice, Denmark were through to the semi-finals of the Euros, a tournament they hadn't even qualified for. Getting the better of the Netherlands looked beyond Denmark, given the defending champions were too strong for them. Both teams knew Germany were waiting in the final, having got the better of Sweden 3-2 in the first semi-final. The Netherlands had already beaten Germany in the group stage, but their hopes of a second clash with Bertie Vogt's side was shattered in Gothenburg. The score was 2-2 after 120 minutes, and it all came down to penalties. And this time, the Great Dane came to the rescue. Schmeichel's save from Marco van Basten made all the difference, which helped Denmark to reach the final. The Dutch could not believe what had happened and were the latest side to underestimate Denmark. After Bergkamp's initial equalizer in the game, Schmeichel had noted that they barely even celebrated. This clearly shows how lightly the Netherlands were taking Denmark in such a high-profile match. 4 days after Peter Schmeichel's penalty shootout heroics, Denmark faced Germany in the final, the team that was called just 10 days before the tournament started. The team who no one thought would even come close to the final were just one step away from achieving what even the most optimistic fans thought was impossible. The whistle blew and the match started. Denmark were impressive from the start, and in the 18th minute they got the lead with midfielder Jensen, whose shooting, to be honest, had been pretty woeful throughout the tournament, but suddenly found a sweet spot to hit a screamer, putting the Danes 1-0 up against a bamboozled Germany. And as a matter of fact, this was his second ever international goal. How amazing, right? Putting up a stubborn defensive display, Denmark limited Germany to minimal chances in the game, with Peter Schmeichel, the Great Dane, again making incredible saves. And in the 78th minute, Wilford sealed a shock victory for his country, putting the game beyond the Germans. The full-time whistle sounded and the Danish players collapsed to the floor in celebration. In one of football's biggest miracles, Denmark won the Euro 1992 tournament, a tournament that they hadn't originally qualified for. "It's dramatic, it's delightful, it's Denmark," was BBC commentator John Motson's concise and alliterative summary of events. What a way to win their first trophy. They were the unlikeliest of all European sides and to this day remain the poster boys for all underdogs. Just 37 days earlier, Denmark were not even in the competition, but the subsequent run of victories over France, the Netherlands and Germany had surpassed any fairy tale that any Danish author could conjure up, and that too without the country's best ever player, whom, and I cannot stress this enough, was in the prime of his career. Rikard Müller Nielsen and the Danish boys of '92 will forever be remembered as the team that stole the show without even getting a ticket. Now that is a story. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you liked it, drop a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.